Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Here's an early Christmas present for you. Right now, when you purchase a new roof from Daniel Hood Roofing, you get 50% off the labor costs. Purchase new gutters, get 100% off labor costs. The offer ends December 1st, so call today, as soon as this show ends. DanielHoodRoofing.com to learn more. Get in touch with them this week. Isn't that right, Daniel Hood?
That's right.
Okay, very good. Back with Daniel, back with Mike, back with Will. When it comes to Tennessee's defense, those guys catch a lot of heat. They have over the course of the last month especially. I've said since Heupel arrived, the defense is always going to be the sidecar. Then they went out and they win the game for you against Texas A&M. I buy in, and immediately it goes south. My question, though, is, and I'll show you some numbers before we get your answer here. Is the defense as bad as people thought? And Bob Hodge dug up some of these too, so I'll give him credit. Who had the better defense this year? Missouri went 10-2, Ole Miss went 10-2, Tennessee went 8-4. So your defense wasn't as good, right? Wrong. They gave up 22.3 points per game at Missouri and Ole Miss. You only gave up 22 points per game. If you're asking me what the big problem was, the problem was the offense. The offense hung the defense out to dry. They exposed the defense. Defense wasn't great. Defense is never going to be Georgia level tied to this offense, in my opinion. So I don't think the defense was as bad as people are making it out to be in terms of you've got to make changes all across the board. That's just me. Now I turn it over to two defenders of an ex-offensive lineman. Will, how bad was the defense? Or was it hung out to dry?
I think it was more hung out to dry. Let's just face it. You're second in the league in sacks, tied for second with Alabama in sacks with 36 this year. You're about middle of the road in turnovers, interceptions, and fumble recoveries with the rest of the league. But if you really look at it, you held 6 teams under 21 points. You held another 4 teams, if I take the Alabama fumble recovery for a touchdown, under 30. You only had 2 games where you really said, hey, Missouri and Georgia, they took us to the woodshed. They beat us. For everybody else, you were in the game to where if you said, hey, our offense really can score 30 points a game, you win all those games, you're 10-2.
It's the Missouri-Ole Miss factor, yes.
It's the Missouri and Georgia those are the games that presented this issue as being bad. I will say, the one area you see in this defense that you continue to look at and go, when somebody has a good outside zone game to the end edge of the off tackle, we have struggled with that. That has been the biggest weakness that you can see consistently in the Florida game, the Missouri game, where Georgia hurts you. So I think there's some where can you improve? What do I need to improve in my linebacker core and that group? But overall, I do not think if you say the season was a disappointment, was it the defense's fault? No, I don't think you could say that.
Daniel Hood, do you agree or disagree?
I mostly agree with Will. The one part that he said that they're kind of middle of the road in turnovers and that type of stuff, that I think is the biggest disappointment of this defense. When Heupel was coming in at UCF, he was averaging 2.2, 2.3 turnovers a game, and this defense hasn't been able to do that. And when you go against Alabama, when you go against Georgia, at Missouri, you're going to have to turn the football over, and this team consistently wasn't able to do that this season. But as a defensive lineman, I would absolutely love to play for Rodney Gardner and what he's got those guys doing. So it's like I want more turnovers. I want to see him to be more dominant in the back end, but the defensive line is on point.
All right, former Vol offensive lineman, how do you look at that?
Yeah, as Will was out there and he'd be out there, I'd be yelling at him, guys, get us the ball back and get off the field, right? That's what I would have said to them. No, the defense did well to certain things. I do agree that the defensive line played well. I don't think they progressed, though, right? They just, all of a sudden, they say, hey, I'm 220 pounds and I'm a bull rusher.
The sacks dropped off that last month.
They sure did, but I also think that injury to Kamal Hadden, as much as we dogged him, I think that changed the way we played defense in the secondary. It changed the way we blitzed. It changed the way that we rushed and got after in our linebackers. So I do think they did well. They were improvement from last year. I would like to see where we really need help is depth. We just got to get more depth at the defensive back and probably linebacker position.
Yeah, see, I think you've got some playmakers. Obviously, look at a guy like James Pierce. You've got some playmakers up front where you still lack those special players in the back end. You just don't have those kind of – you don't have a corner that's going to go out and make the interception and turn the ball over.
You don't have a Deion Grant at safety. You don't have somebody that's going to be consistently like the big danger guy in the back. If somebody says, hey, you got to always know where that guy is because he's going to be a ball.
Yeah.
You don't have that. So you definitely, like I said, there are areas of where you can see improvement. You need consistency. But I agree. I think more of it is the Jimmies and Joes have got to get another step up in certain positions.
Yeah, I just think, when you look at Missouri and Ole Miss, they actually basically had the exact same points per game allowed, but they won 2 more games. Their offense covered for their defense. That was what you hired in Josh Heupel. You hired offense. So I will be interested to see if he makes a bunch of defensive changes on this staff, because I think it was the offense that took a much bigger step back this year than the defense, if you just take it by the numbers or the eyeball test. But that's just me. When we come back, let's talk about the transfer portal. Let's talk about the guys who have eligibility remaining. Let's talk about the guys we would throw our imaginary NIL dollars right at. Come on back on The Sports Source.